Part 2, Chapters 12 and 13 of Charles Rex by Ethel M. Dell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 12. The Ogre's Castle. "Let's get out into the garden," said Bunny urgently. Dinner was over, and Maud and Saltash were at the piano at the far end of the great room. Jake and Larpent were smoking in silent companionship at a comfortable distance. Toby, who had been very quiet the whole evening, sat silently apart in a low chair with her hands clasped about her knees. Bunny alone was restless. She lifted her eyes to him as he prowled near her, and they held a hint of mischief. At his murmured words she rose. "You'd like to?" he questioned. She nodded. "Of course. Love it. You know the way. You lead." Bunny needed no second bidding. He went straight to the tall door and held it open for her. Toby, very slim and girlish in her white raiment, cocked her chin and walked out in state. But the moment they were alone she turned upon him a face brimful of laughter. "Oh, now we can enjoy ourselves. I've been feeling so proper all the evening. Quick, where shall we go?" "Into the garden," said Bunny. "Or wait. Come up on to the battlements. It's ripping up there." She thrust her hand eagerly into his. "I shall love that. Which way do we go?" "Through the music room," said Bunny. He caught and held her hand. They ran up one of the wide stairways that branched north and south to the gallery. Saltash's music followed them from the drawing room as they went. He was playing a haunting Spanish love song, and Toby shivered and quickened her pace. They reached another oak door, which Bunny opened, drawing her impetuously forward. "This is Charlie's own particular sanctum. Rather a ripping place, isn't it? He's got a secret den that leads somewhere out of it, but no one knows how to get in." He led her over a polished oak floor into a long, almost empty apartment with turreted windows at each end, and a grand piano near one of them that shone darkly in the shaded lamplight. Underfoot were Persian rugs, exquisite of tint and rich of texture. 2 or 3 deep divans completed the furniture of the room, giving it a look of Eastern magnificence that strangely lured the senses. "Rather like a harem, I always think," said Bunny, pausing to look around. "There's an Arabian Nights sort of flavour about it that rather gets hold of one. Why, you're shivering. Surely you're not cold?" "No, I'm not cold," said Toby, "but I don't like this place. It's creepy. Let's go." But Bunny lingered. "What's the matter with it? It's luxurious enough. I've always rather liked coming in here." Toby made a small but vehement gesture of protest. "Then you like horrid things," she said. "There's no air in here. Only scent." Bunny sniffed. "Well, it's quite subtle, anyhow. Not enough to upset anybody. Rather a seductive perfume. What?" She surprised him by stamping in sudden fury upon the bare floor. "It's beastly. It's hateful. How can you like it? It's bad. It's damnable." Bunny stared at her. "Well, Charlie designed it, anyway. It's the one corner in the whole castle that is individually his. What on earth is there that you don't like about it?" "Everything, everything," declared Toby passionately. "I don't want to stay here another minute. Show me the way out." She spoke with such imperiousness that Bunny judged it best to comply. He showed her a door in the eastern wall that was draped by a heavy red curtain. "You can get up onto the ramparts that way. But wait a minute while I find the switch." "What are you running away from? There isn't a bogey man anywhere." Toby drew in her breath sharply, with a nervous glance over her shoulder. "I think it's a dreadful place," she said. "I want to get out into the air." Bunny opened the door, and a dark passage gaped before them. "This looks much more eerie," he observed, feeling about for a switch. "Do you really like this better?" "Much better," said Toby, going boldly into the darkness. "Don't believe there is a switch," said Bunny, striking a match. "No, there isn't. How beastly mediaeval. Look here, wait while I go and get an electric torch." "No, no. Let's feel our way. I'm sure we can," urged Toby. "Come on, it'll be fun. Shut the door." The spirit of adventure seized upon Bunny. He let the door swing close and caught her hand again. Toby's delighted chuckle told him that she had fully recovered her equilibrium. Her fingers twined closely about his own. "Now we shall have some fun," she said. They went forward together for a few yards in total darkness. Then from somewhere high above them a faint light filtered through. "That's on the stairs," said Bunny. "One of those window slits through which in the old hospitable days all comers were potted at. Look out how you go." The words were scarcely uttered when they both kicked against the lowest stair and blundered forward. A squeal of laughter came from Toby. Bunny said "damn" with much heartiness and then laughed also. "I knew it would be fun," said Toby. "Are you hurt?" He raised her with a strong young arm. "No, I'm all right. Are you?" "Yes, I'm loving it. What happens next? Do the stairs wind round and round till we get to the top?" "Yes, there are about 600 of 'em. Feel equal to it?" "Equal to anything," said Toby promptly. "Let me go first." "Why don't I go and get a light?" said Bunny. "Because you're not to. Because it's heaps more fun without. Besides, there's lots of light up there. Now then. Are you ready? Come on. Let's go." Indomitable resolution sounded in Toby's voice. She drew herself free from Bunny's hold and began to mount. "You know it's haunted, don't you?" said Bunny cheerily. "A beautiful lady was once captured and imprisoned in this turret in the dear old days when everyone did those things. She had to choose between throwing herself from the battlements and marrying her wicked captor, an ancestor of Charlie's, by the way. She did the latter, and then died of a broken heart. They always did, you know. Her poor little ghost has wandered up and down this stair ever since." "Idiot," said Toby tersely. "Who?" said Bunny. "And why?" "The woman. Why didn't she throw herself over? It would have been much easier." "Perhaps she didn't find it so," said Bunny. "And she'd doubtless have done the haunting stunt even if she had." "Well, then, why didn't she marry the brute and give him hell?" said Toby tensely. Bunny uttered a shout of laughter that echoed and re echoed up and down the winding stair. "Is that what you would have done?" "I'd have done one or the other," said Toby. "By Jove, how bloodthirsty you sound!" ejaculated Bunny. "Are you in earnest, by any chance?" "Yes, I am in earnest." There was a note of bitter challenge in Toby's reply. "If a woman hasn't the spunk to defend herself, she's better dead." "I agree with you there," said Bunny with decision. "But I don't know how you come to know it." "Oh, I know a lot of things," said Toby's voice in the darkness, and this time it sounded oddly cold and desolate, as if the stone walls around them had somehow deadened it. He put out a hand and touched her, for she seemed in some fashion to have withdrawn from him, to have become remote as the echoes about them. "There are heaps of things you don't know, anyway," he said. "You're only a kid, after all." "Think so?" said Toby. She evaded his hand, flitting up before him towards that grim slit in the wall through which the dim half light of the summer night vaguely entered. Her light figure became visible to him as she reached it. There came to him a swift memory of the butterfly beauty that had so astounded him earlier in the evening. "No, I don't," he said. "You're past that stage. What on earth has Maud been doing to you? Do you know, when you first came into the drawing room to night I hardly knew you." Toby's light laugh came back to him. She was like a white butterfly flitting before him in the twilight. "I wondered what you'd say. I've given up jumping rose bushes, and I'm learning to be respectable. It's rather fun sometimes. Maud is very good to me, and I love Jake, don't you?" "Yes, he's a brick. Always was," said Bunny enthusiastically. "I'd back him every time. But I say, don't get too respectable, will you? Somehow it doesn't suit you." Again he heard her laugh in the darkness, a quick, rather breathless laugh. "I don't think I'll ever be that," she said. "Do you?" "I don't know," said Bunny. "But you looked scared to death when you came in, as if you were mounted on a horse that was much too high for you. I believe you were afraid of that old daddy of yours." "I am, rather," said Toby. "You see, I don't know him very well, and I'm not sure he likes me." "Of course he likes you," said Bunny. "Why? I don't know why he should." "Everyone does," said Bunny with assurance. "Don't be silly," said Toby. They were past the slit in the wall, and were winding upwards now towards another. Bunny postponed argument, finding he needed all his breath for the climb. The steps had become narrower and more steeply spiral than before. His companion mounted so swiftly that he found it difficult to keep close to her. The ascent seemed endless. Again they passed a window slit, and Bunny suddenly awoke to the fact that the flying figure in front was trying to outdistance him. It came to him in a flash of intuition. She was daring him. She was fooling him. Some imp of mischief had entered into her. She was luring him to pursuit. And like the whirling of a torch in a dark place, the knowledge first dazzled and then drew him. All his pulses beat in a swift crescendo. There was a considerable mixture of Irish deviltry in Bunny Bryan's veins, and anything in the nature of a challenge fired him. He uttered a wild whoop that filled the eerie place with fearful echoes, and gave chase. It was the maddest race he had ever run. Toby fled before him like the wind, up and up, round and round the winding stair, fleet-footed, almost as though on wings, leaving him behind. He followed, fiercely determined, putting forth his utmost strength, sometimes stumbling on the uneven stairs, yet always leaping onward, urged to wilder effort by the butterfly elusiveness of his quarry. Once he actually had her within his reach, and then he stumbled, and she was gone. He heard her maddening laughter as she fled. The ascent seemed endless. His heart was pumping, but he would not slacken. She should never triumph over him, this mocking imp, this butterfly girl, who from the first had held him with a fascination he could not fathom. He would make her pay for her audacity. He would teach her that he was more than a mere butt for her drollery. He would show her. A door suddenly banged high above him. He realized that she had reached the top of the turret and burst out upon the ramparts. A very curious sensation went through him. It was almost a feeling of fear. She was such a wild little creature, and her mood was at its maddest. The chill of the place seemed to wrap him round. He felt as if icy fingers had clutched his heart. It was all a joke, of course, only a joke. But jokes sometimes ended disastrously, and Toby was not an ordinary person. She was either a featherbrain or a genius. He did not know which. Perhaps there was no very clear dividing line between the two. She was certainly extraordinary. He wished he had not accepted her challenge. If he had refused to follow, she would soon have abandoned her absurd flight through the darkness. It was absurd. They had both been absurd to come to this eerie place without a light. Somehow her disappearance, the clanging of that door, had sobered him very effectually. He cursed himself for a fool as he groped his way upwards. The game had gone too far. He ought to have foreseen. And then, suddenly, he blundered into an iron-clamped door, and swore again. Yes, this thing was beyond a joke. The door resisted him, and he wrestled with it furiously, as though it had been a living thing obstructing his passage. He had begun to think that she must have bolted it on the outside, when abruptly it yielded to his very forcible persuasion, and he stumbled headlong forth into the open starlight. He was out upon the ramparts, and dim wooded parklands stretched away to the sea before his dazzled eyes. The first thing that struck him was the emptiness of the place. It seemed to catch him by the throat. There was something terrible about it. Behind him the door clanged, and the sound seemed the only sound in that wonderful June night. It had a fateful effect in the silence, like the tolling of a bell. Something echoed to it in his own heart, and he knew that he was afraid. Desperately he flung his fear aside and moved forward to the parapet. The wall was thick, but between the battlements it was only the height of his knee. Below was depth, sheer depth, stark emptiness. He looked over and saw the stone terrace dimly lit by the stars far below him. The gardens were a blur of darkness, out of which he vaguely discerned the glimmer of the lake among its trees. His heart was beating suffocatingly. He struggled to subdue his panting breath. She was somewhere close to him, of course. Of course. But the zest of the chase had left him. He felt dizzy, frightened, sick. He tried to raise his voice to call her, and then realized with a start of self-ridicule that it had failed him. He leaned against the parapet and resolutely pulled himself together. Then he went forward, and found himself in a stone passage, actually on the castle wall between two parapets; the one on his left towering above the inner portion of the castle with its odd uneven roofs of stone, the one on his right still sheer above the terrace, a drop of 100 feet or more. The emptiness and silence seemed to strike at him with a nebulous hostility as he went. He had a vague sense of intrusion, of being in a forbidden place. The blood was no longer hot in his veins. He even shivered in the warmth of the summer night as he followed the winding walk between the battlements. But he was his own master now, and as he moved forward through the glimmering starlight he called to Toby. "Toby! Toby, I say! Come out! I'm not playing!" He felt as if the silence mocked him, and again that icy construction about the heart made him catch his breath. He put up a hand to his brow and found it wet. "Toby!" he cried again, and this time he did not attempt to keep the urgency out of his voice. "The game's up. Come back." She did not answer him, neither did she come; but he had a strong conviction that she heard. A throb of anger went through him. He strode forward with decision. He knew that the battlement walk ended on the north side of the castle in a blank wall, built centuries before as a final defence from an invading enemy. Only by scaling this wall could the eastern portion be approached. He would find her here. She could not possibly escape. Something of confidence came back to him as he remembered this. She could not elude him much longer. He quickened his stride. His face was grim. She had carried the thing too far, and he would let her know it. He rounded the curve of the castle wall. He must be close to her now. And then suddenly he stopped dead, for he heard her mocking laughter, and it came from behind him, from the turret through which he had gained the ramparts. He wheeled round with something like violence and began to retrace his steps. He had never been so baffled before, and he was angry, hotly angry. He rounded the curve once more and approached the turret. His eyes were accustomed to the dim half light, but still he could not see her. Fuming, he went back the whole distance along the ramparts till he came to the iron-clamped door that had banged behind him. He put forth an impatient hand to open it, for it was obvious that she must have eluded him by hiding behind it, and now she was probably on the stair. And then, very suddenly, from far behind him, in the direction of the northern wall, he heard her laugh again. He swung about in a fury almost too incensed to be amazed. She had the wings of a Mercury, it was evident. But he would catch her. He would catch her now, or perish in the attempt. Once more he traversed the stony promenade between the double line of battlements, searching each embrasure as he went. All the way back to the wall on the north side he pursued his way with fierce intention, inwardly raging, outwardly calm. He reached the obstructing wall and found nothing. The emptiness came all about him again. The ghostly quiet of the place clung like a tangible veil. She had evaded him again. He was powerless. But at that point his wrath suddenly burst into flame, the hotter and the fiercer for its long restraint. He wheeled in his tracks with furious finality and abandoned his quest. His intention was to go straight down by the way he had come, and leave her to play her will-o'-the-wisp game in solitude. It would soon pall upon her, he was assured; but in any case he would no longer dance to her piping. She had fooled him to the verge of frenzy. Again he rounded the curve of the wall and came to the door of the turret. A great bastion of stone rose beside this, and as he reached it a small white figure darted forward from its shadow with dainty butterfly movements, pulled at the heavy oak door and held it open with an elaborate gesture for him to pass. It was a piece of exquisite daring, and with an older man it would have taken effect. Saltash would have laughed his quizzing, cynical laugh and accepted his defeat with royal grace. But Bunny was young and vehement of impulse, and the flame of his anger still scorched his soul with a heat intolerable. She had baffled him, astounded him, humiliated him, and his was not a nature to endure such treatment tamely. He hung on his stride for a single moment, then hotly he turned and snatched her into his arms. 13. The end of the game. She cried out sharply as he caught her, and then she struggled and fought like a mad creature for freedom. But Bunny held her fast. He had been hard pressed, and now that the strain was over, all the pent passion of that long stress had escaped beyond control. He held her; at first as a boy might hold a comrade who had provoked him to exasperation; then, as desperately she resisted him, a new element suddenly rushed like fire through his veins, and he realized burningly, overwhelmingly, that for the first time in his life he held a woman in his arms. It came to him like a blinding revelation, and forthwith it seemed to him that he stepped into a new world. She had tried him too far, had thrown him off his balance. He was unfit for this further and infinitely greater provocation. His senses swam. The touch of her intoxicated him, as though he had drunk a potent draught from some goblet of the gods. He heard himself laugh passionately at her puny effort to resist him, and the next moment she was at his mercy. He was pressing fevered kisses upon her gasping, quivering lips. But she fought against him still. Though he kissed her, she would have none of it. She struck at him, battering him frantically with her hands, stamping wildly with her feet, till he literally swung her off the ground, holding her slender body against his breast. "You little madcap!" he said, with his hot lips against her throat. "How dare you? Do you think I'd let you go now?" The quick passion of his voice, or the fiery possession of his hold, arrested her. She suddenly ceased to battle with him, and stiffened in his grasp as if turned to stone. "Let me go," she said tensely. "I will not," said Bunny. He was mad with the fever of youth. He held her with a fierce exaltation. There could be no returning now, nor did he wish to return. "You little wild butterfly," he said, and kissed the throbbing white throat again. "I've caught you now, and you can't escape." "You've had your revenge," Toby flung back gaspingly. You're a skunk if you take any more." Oddly, that sobered him as any protest more feminine would have failed to do. He set her on her feet, but he held her still. "I haven't done with you," he said with a certain doggedness. "Oh, I know that," she returned very bitterly. "You're like all the men. You can't play fair. Men don't know how." That stung him. "Fair or unfair, you've done all the playing so far," he said. "If you thought I was such a tame fool as to put up with it well, that's not my fault." "No, it's never your fault," said Toby. She made a little vehement movement to extricate herself, but finding him obdurate, abandoned the attempt. "You're not a fool, Bunny Bryan. You're a beast and a coward. There." "Be careful," warned Bunny, his dark eyes gleaming ominously. But she uttered a laugh of high defiance. "Oh, I'm not afraid of you. You're not full grown yet. You're ashamed of yourself already." He colored deeply at the taunt, but he maintained his hold upon her. "All right," he said. "Say I did it all. It doesn't matter how you put it. The fact remains." "What fact?" said Toby swiftly. He clasped her a little closer. "Well, do you think I'm going to let you go after this?" She caught her breath sharply. "What do you mean? I don't know what you mean." There was quick agitation in her voice. Again she sought to free herself, and again he frustrated her. But the violence had gone out of his hold. There was even a touch of dignity about him as he made reply. "I mean, you little wild butterfly, that now I've got you I'm going to keep you. You'll have to marry me and make the best of me." "Marry you?" said Toby as one incredulous. "Yes. What's the matter with the idea? Don't you want to?" Bunny's good-looking young face came close to hers. He was laughing, but there was a half-coaxing note in his voice as well. Toby was silent for a moment, then. "You're mad," she said tersely. "I'm not," said Bunny. "I'm perfectly serious. Don't you understand that when this kind of thing gets hold of you, there's no getting away from it? We can't possibly go back to where we were before, behave as if nothing had happened. You wouldn't want to, would you?" There was a hint of pleading in his tone now. Toby made a curious little gesture that seemed to express a measure of reassurance. But "I don't know," she said somewhat dubiously. "You aren't angry, are you?" said Bunny softly. She hesitated. "I was." "Yes, but not now, when you've begun to realize what a jolly thing life together would be. It isn't as if we'd never met before. We're pals already." "Yes, we're pals," said Toby, but still her voice was dubious. "I say, be a sport," the boy urged suddenly. "You said you weren't afraid of me. Don't chuck the best thing in life for want of a little ordinary courage." "What is the best thing in life?" said Toby. His hold grew close again, but it remained gentle. "You marry me," he said, "and I'll show you." There was something sublime rather than ridiculous in his assurance. Toby caught her breath again, as if about to laugh, and then, quite suddenly, wholly unexpectedly, she began to cry. "You poor little darling," said Bunny. She leaned her head upon his shoulder, fighting great sobs that threatened to overwhelm her. It was not often that Toby cried, and this was no mere child's distress. Indeed, there was something about it that filled her companion with a curious kind of awe. He held her closely and comfortingly, but for some reason he could not speak to her, could not even attempt to seek the cause of her trouble. As his sister had done before him, though almost unconsciously, he sensed a barrier that he might not pass. Toby regained her self-command at last, stood for a space in silence, her face still hidden, then abruptly raised it and uttered a little quivering laugh. "You great big silly," she said. "I'm not going to marry you, so there. Now let me go." Her tone and action put him instantly at his ease. This was the Toby he knew. "Yes, you are going to marry me. And I shan't let you go," he said. "So there." She looked him straight in the face. "No, Bunny," she said, with a little catch in her breath. "You're a dear to think of it, but it won't do." "Why not?" demanded Bunny. She hesitated. He squeezed her shoulders. "Tell me why not." "I don't want to tell you," said Toby. "You've got to," he said with decision. In the dimness his eyes looked into hers. A little shiver went through Toby. "I don't want to," she said again. "Go on," commanded Bunny autocratically. She turned suddenly and set her hands against his breast. "Well, then, because I'm years and years older than you are." "Rot," interjected Bunny. "And I'm not good enough for you," finished Toby rather tremulously. "Rats," said Bunny. "No, it isn't rats," she contradicted him rather piteously. "You've turned a silly game into deadly earnest, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't. I wouldn't have done it if I'd known. It's such a mistake, it's always such a great mistake, to do that. You say we can't go back to where we were before, but we can. We can. Let's try, anyway." "We can't," said Bunny with decision, "and there's no reason why we should. Look here, you don't want to marry anyone else, do you?" "I don't want to marry at all," said Toby. He laughed at that. "Darling, of course you'll marry. Come, you might as well have me first as last. You won't get any other fellow to suit you half as well. What? Say you'll have me. Come, you've got to. You don't hate me, do you?" Again the pleading note was in his voice. She responded to it almost involuntarily. Her hands slipped upwards to his shoulders. "But I'm not good enough," she said again, catching back a sob. His arms enfolded her, closely and tenderly. "Oh, skip that," he said. "I won't listen." You're very silly," murmured Toby with her head against his neck. "No, I'm not. I'm very sensible. Look here, we're engaged now, aren't we?" said Bunny. No, we're not." Her voice came muffled against his coat. "You're not to think of such a thing for ages and ages and ages." "Oh, rot," he said again with impatience. "I hate a waiting game, especially when there's nothing to wait for. You're not going to give me the go by now." His face was close to her again. She put her hand against his chin and softly pushed it away. "Bunny," she said. "Well, dear?" He stood, not yielding, but suffering her check. "Bunny," she said again, speaking with obvious effort, "I've got to say something. You must listen. Just for a minute. Jake won't want you to be engaged to me." "What?" Bunny started a little, as one who suddenly remembers a thing forgotten. "Jake!" Then hotly, "What the devil has it got to do with Jake?" "Stop," said Toby. "Jake's quite right. He knows. He's older than you are. You'd better ask him." "Ask Jake!" Bunny's wrath exploded. "I'm my own master. I can marry whom I like. What on earth should I ask Jake for?" Toby uttered a little sigh. "You needn't if you don't want to. But if you're wise, you will. He understands. You wouldn't. You see, I've been to a lot of different schools, Bunny, foreign ones, and I've learnt a heap of rather funny things. That's why I'm so much older than you are. That's why I don't want to get married, as most girls do. I never ought to marry. I know too much." "But you'll marry me," he said, swiftly. "I don't know," she said. "Not anyway, yet. If you can stick to me for 6 months, p'raps I'll think about it. But I think you'll come to your senses long before then, Bunny." A desolate little note of humour sounded in her voice. "And if you do, you'll be so glad not to have to throw me over." "You're talking rot," he interposed. "No, I'm not. I'm talking sense, ordinary common sense. I wouldn't get engaged to any man on the strength of what happened to night. You hadn't even thought of me in that way when we came up here." "I'm not so sure of that," said Bunny. "Anyway, the mischief is done now. And you needn't be afraid I shall throw you over because—" An unexpected throb came into his voice. "I know now I've simply got to have you." Toby sighed again. "But if I'm not worth waiting for, I'm not worth having," she said. "But why wait?" argued Bunny. "For 100 reasons. You're not really in love with me, for one thing." Toby spoke with conviction. "Yes, I am." Stubbornly he contradicted her. "No, you're not. Listen, Bunny. Love isn't just a passion flower that blooms in a single night and then fades. You're too young really to understand, but I know. I know. Love is more like a vine. It takes a long while to ripen and come to perfection, and it has a lot to go through first." Again a sense of strangeness came to Bunny. Surely this was a grown woman speaking. This was not the little wild creature he knew. But, perhaps it was from perversity, her warning only served to strengthen his determination. "You can go on arguing till midnight," he said. "You won't convince me. But look here, if you don't want anyone to know, we'll keep it to ourselves for a little while. Will that satisfy you? We'll meet and have some jolly times together in private. Will that make you any happier?" "We shan't be engaged?" questioned Toby. "Not if you'll kiss me without," said Bunny, generously. "Oh, I don't mind kissing you." She lifted her lips at once. "If it doesn't mean anything." He stooped swiftly and met them with his own. His kiss was close and lingering, it held tenderness. And in a moment her arms crept round his neck and she clung to him as she returned it. He felt a sob run through her slight frame as he held her, though she shed no tears and made no sound, and he was stirred to a deeper chivalry than he had ever known before. "It does mean one thing, darling," he said softly. "It means that we love each other, doesn't it?" She did not answer him for a moment, then, "It may mean that," she whispered back. "I don't know very much about love. No one ever really loved me before." "I love you," he said. "I love you." "Thank you," she murmured. He held her still. "You'll never run away from me again? Promise?" She shook her head promptly with a faint echo of the elfin laughter that had so maddened him a little earlier. "No, I won't promise. But I'll show you where I was hiding, if you like. Shall I?" "All right. Show me," he said. She freed herself from him with a little spring, and turned to the stone buttress against which he had found her. He followed her closely, half afraid of losing her again, but she did not attempt to elude him. "See?" she said, with a funny little chuckle. "I found this ledge." The ledge she indicated was on a level with the parapet and not more than 6 inches wide. It ran square with the buttress, which on the outer side dropped sheer to the terrace. Bunny looked and turned sick. "You never went along there," he said. She laughed again. "Yes, I did. It's quite easy if you slide your feet. I'll show you." "You'll do nothing of the sort." He grabbed her fiercely. "What in heaven's name were you thinking of? How did you learn to do these things?" She did not answer him. "I wanted to tease you," she said lightly. "And I did, too, didn't I? I pretended I was Andromeda when I got round the corner, but no Perseus came to save me. Only an angry dragon ramped about behind." Bunny stared at her as if he thought her bewitched. "But you were over by that north wall once. I'll swear you were over there." "Oh, don't swear," she said demurely. "It's so wrong. I wasn't there, really. I only sent my voice that way to frighten you." "Good heavens!" gasped Bunny. She laughed again with gay insouciance. "Haven't I given you a splendid evening's entertainment? Well, it's all over now and the curtain's down. Let's go." She turned with her hand in his and led him back to the turret door. Reaching it, he sought to detain her. "You'll never do it again. Promise. Promise." "I won't promise anything," she said lightly. "Ah, but you must," he insisted. "Toby, you might have killed yourself." Her laugh suddenly had a mocking sound. "Oh, no, I shall never kill myself on Lord Saltash's premises," she said. "Why do you say that?" questioned Bunny. "Because, que voulez-vous? He would want me neither dead nor alive," she made reckless answer. "A good thing, too," declared Bunny stoutly. The echoes of Toby's laughter as she went down the chill dark stairway had an eerie quality that sent an odd shiver through his heart. Somehow it made him think of the unquiet spirit that was said to haunt the place. A spirit that wandered alone, always alone, in the utter desolation. End of chapters 12 and 13. End of part 2.